Signore e signori, abbiamo più influenza, sui tuoi figli di te, Molly amiamo creato e iniziato da new Jersey. Last week today lived, presentato da Filtastic, Comics and Art.
Let's fucking go.
Hey everybody out there. I know it's been a while and nobody's out there yet. That's perfectly fine. I'm just going to start talking in case stuff catches up. Actually, Las Cruces was here. Las Cruces is around. I'm going to give just a few minutes for people to trickle in. I don't want to wait too long because we have a guest who is joining us from is it halfway around? I guess it's the other side of the world. I was going to say halfway around the world. I don't know if that's the same thing. So we're just going to say he's very far away. Yeah, Las Cruces is here in New Mexico. How you doing? Yeah, I know I haven't done a live show like this in, actually it was about, I think, 2 months, if I remember correctly. 1 month. See, I don't remember correctly. That's the problem. So yeah, a little rusty, but I'm happy to see everybody here. In case you don't know, I've been alternating weeks with my weekend show. So there's no show next weekend, but then the weekend after that will be a show. And in addition to that, depending on either what I feel like or if I have a guest or not, I've been either doing Last Week Today Live or I've been doing Let's Draw. So if I had enough guests, I would probably alternate every week as well. But I just haven't built it up yet, to be honest with you. And it does get a little bit tiring. I mean, I think we all know that. So what I'm going to do, let's give everybody just one more minute here. I know that I kind of jumped on a little bit early, and by early, it probably means right on time. I'll say this. I also, before I forget, I did realize that I have some stuff to ship out that I have not done so yet. I'm getting my boxes supposedly today, says the U.S. Postal Service. So as soon as they arrive, I will be able to ship stuff out. I had a couple paintings I had done. I'll show off quickly. These are already sold. These were part of the Heroes for Heroes event about 2 weeks ago. So these are some paintings I did in 2019. If you were on the Let's Draw show, then you have to pick these out. I actually went out and, I should say I ordered, didn't so much go out, these top loaders here. So they are well protected. So these will be going out later today, if not Monday. And hopefully the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday doesn't mess up the shipping too much. All right, so I've been waiting a little bit. I know that we don't have everybody here yet, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let our guest in here. Because like I said, he's coming from a long way around here. So please welcome everybody to the stage. Aaron Mack, Cynation Comics. Aaron, how are you?
Good.
Wow.
we thought we'd come in the pair to bring the full team.
I appreciate that. 2 for the price of 1. It was a nice surprise.
That's it.
Nice to meet you.
Before we get into it, I have to apologize to you guys. We've been trying to put this together for the longest time. You guys have been great sports about it. It's like, hey, here's the link. And all right, let me read this. And then just life and things, and it hasn't happened, but I'm finally so glad that we're here now.
Oh, it's always hard to put stuff together, but busy is good. Busy is always good.
If only it was busy with more like lucrative things, I'd be like, yeah, I've been just so busy hauling money in or doing this and that, but you know what, we're here and that's what counts. And I want to thank you guys because you are in Australia. It's like 3 a.m. there right now.
That is correct.
Right.
Yeah.
If you guys need to tap out at any point, just, and I'll be all right, they're gonna go to bed, let's just we'll go from there. But before we get into now that we're into everything, give me the elevator pitch. Gods Amongst Men. What is the idea?
Well, I'm gonna put him on the spot right now because I'm always doing the elevator pitch.
Forgot the
You
elevator.
forgot the elevator pitch. So, Gods Among Men, it's something a little bit different. It's a true crime story, and it revolves around a small business owner who's trying to make his way in the world, doing everything by the rules. And when he starts finding that things are not panning out the way they say that they should, he starts getting, he gets presented with an alternative means of, providing for his family and, making sure his business doesn't go under. And it starts, this is issue one is the beginning of going down this rabbit hole because we go deep down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, from the preview that you gave me, first off, the first couple, I remember thinking I read something wrong because the first couple pages. I'm not going to give anything away. I'll say this: I won't give anything away on purpose. But the first few pages are tonally different than the rest of the story. To the point where it's like, all right, I want to see where he's going with this. I want to see what's happening here. Mm. Now, one thing that's been common, whenever I have a creator on, whether it be a writer or artist, I don't watch the other videos or whatnot. I just don't want to get influenced by that. And I'm sure that you guys don't want to repeat the same answers and whatnot. But one thing I have read over and over again, and I got this feeling at the first time reading it, you draw a lot of people are saying, oh, this kind of feels like Train Spotting. So I got to ask, what was your main kind of, I don't want to say influence, but what were some of the materials you had in mind when you were writing the story or just planning things out?
I'm going to throw that to you because you're the story writer.
Because it's based on true events, we weren't really, influenced by anything in terms of the story. We just kind of retold it the way it went down. But I guess stylistically, we were influenced by a lot of films, and I think Train Spotting was one of them. Where I think some people draw comparisons to Breaking Bad, but I think it's closer to Train Spotting. It's not really a Breaking Bad story.
Yeah, it feels a lot, for lack of a better word, cleaner than Train Spotting. It feels a little bit like your character's a little bit more fleshed out. Like the whole sequence, and I'm not giving anything away in this one, but with the prawn burger and whatnot, it really, I mean, I feel like if this was Train Spotting or something, it'd be like, hey, I'm putting together a burger. Here you went into the authenticity of it. You went to the steps of it. It's like, I might want to try something like this, but I don't know if I could get my wife eating prawn. But it's
just don't tell her what's in it.
Oh no, she'll be hovering. She's a hoverer. She's like, what are you doing? I don't know what you're doing, but I know it's wrong.
There's something. I think there's something so irreplaceable about when you try and find these sort of elements of authenticity to ground your work. I think in a fictional piece, you'll always try and find ways to make relatable characters, recognizable locations, or even sort of universal themes. But what I guess you could say worked in our benefit was the fact that the story was all laid out. So the key thing with the shift from the first few pages into, I guess you would call it the beginning, the chronological beginning of the story was which point in time do we hone in on?
And that's an interesting point too. But one thing you've been coming back to, it's a true story. Was there anything you were like, maybe I shouldn't put this in, or maybe we have? Are there any fears like somebody's going to come around like, hey, look, what did you do to this guy here? Is that supposed to be me?
There's definitely things that we didn't put in, not necessarily because we were afraid of anything, but there's just, in real life, so much more happens even within like a single day or in a single week or month that takes place in the comic. And we had to really think about what's crucial to propelling the story forward. Some things were cool stories to tell your friends kind of thing, but sometimes it takes up additional pages and doesn't progress the story. So we had to, in that sense, be quite selective of what we put in.
And that's, I think, a fine art all in itself. I've heard that same discussion with with movies and whatnot as well.
Mm.
And it's a good point. I mean, even though it's a true story, they don't need to know that you got up and brushed your teeth, at
Right.
6 a.m., that type of stuff.
Mm.
I mean, well, let me ask, what gravitated you towards telling the story as a comic rather than any other medium?
I think it was so this it was a story that we'd actually been, I guess, developing over about a decade. And the initial idea was we kind of envisioned like, oh, we'd love to see it as like as a film. And then over time it went, okay, from a film, I think a TV series worked better for a long form. And then we started hitting
Well, we wrote a pilot for it.
yeah, we wrote a pilot, and then we wrote a short concept film to try and develop that. And it, we started hitting these walls of like, there was the budgetary thing, but then there was also what the ethical side of it.
Ethical.
No, I didn't have a problem with that. I think it was more of some things were just not feasible unless certain locations that we needed, we just couldn't do it unless you had this immense Hollywood budget.
Mm.
I got you.
So yeah, we ultimately kind of I think it came at a time when I was starting to get into comic books, and Josh said, you're reading so many comic books. Also, I just realized, so that's Josh Mack. He's the story writer, and I'm Aaron Mack, and I do the details and the letters. I guess I direct the comic book. Yeah, like when we started discussing the idea of like when Josh said, what if we do it as a comic book? We basically went, well, it's like film with a lot less steps, smaller crew, and no actors, which is good because dealing with actors can be a real pain in the ass sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about special effects. Basically, you don't have to do a green screen. You just, if you want it, you get it drawn in, and there you go.
Especially with some of the scenes in the book that can get a bit sort of dicey, if you will.
Yeah. One thing I should mention, by the way, I didn't mention this earlier. At the bottom of the screen, you will see a banner with 2 URLs. Right now, you cannot get God Among Men in stores. The only ways to get it are either by going to the first website, which I have here for physical copies, or the one right after that for a digital copy. Whether you choose to read this in paper or online, I highly encourage you to do so. If you've been watching me for a while, whether you're watching me live or on the replay, then you know that I don't have people on if I don't like their book, because I like to talk good about books, especially when we have indie guys here. It takes, in my opinion, a lot more grit and whatnot to get your idea out there than anything else. And I could go on about that, but I won't, because we need to talk more about you guys, and we need to talk about this book. I'm going to say this. I read it digitally, and I was amazed because I've read a lot of indie and Kickstarter books this year, more so than any other year. And you can always tell there's a little bit of a quality, like, okay, well, yeah, they're not a Marvel, they're not a DC. I honestly felt like I was reading an Image comic.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And I was like, it was like that level of just production that you really don't see, in like a homebrew story. So I want to let you know, I appreciate that so much.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
We're big fans of Image, so that means a lot.
Of course. Hope maybe we'll get, nobody's watching, but maybe we'll get lucky and Image, somebody from Image just catches us like, let's bring him in. Everything's done already. What do we have to do?
Exactly. I think that was something that was so crucial when Josh and I were discussing it, that we said whether it was a TV series and when it came to the comic book, it had to look good, because we felt that the story had legs as something, different and something unique, so that the art couldn't be subpar, if you will. Like everything had to be, we had to find the best artists in Melbourne and the best colorists. So yeah.
And look, guys, even anybody watching this, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Mack brothers here, but when you're doing an indie project, even if you say, hey, I'm going to write it and draw it myself, finding things like a good colorist, a good printer. One thing I've learned just talking to creators, it's not easy and it's not cheap, but I guess compared to a big Hollywood movie, yeah, it's much more feasible.
Mhm.
So do you have like a definitive number of issues planned out, or is this something that you can let go for a while? What's the overall scheme?
We have a definitive ending, and we know the arcs that we want to, you know, do to get there. But in terms of an actual number at this stage, we don't know exactly. We know the first arc will probably be about 5 issues.
I think we throw it to about a rough,
It's 3 digits probably.
like 100.
Wow. So this is the ground floor of
Yeah.
yeah. And like I said, guys, this is definitely an interesting story. Definitely something different. I've this year, just in my personal life, changing jobs and everything, I've talked a lot more to people about comics. And one of the things I point out is it's not all superheroes. It's not all this. Comics are just like TV. There's something in it for everyone. And this is a shining example how you have a solid story, a compelling story, and there's no capes. There's no lasers coming out of your eyes or whatnot. It's great. It's storytelling. I always like to think of comics like this as storytelling in the purest form, because your idea is here. You put it into writing, and you're drawing it up. You're getting it out there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that was great too, to see how our ideas from the story then translated to when we spoke with Ben Sullivan, our artist, and the very first page we did, which I can show you, I've got a copy right here. We didn't, or maybe show this page. We didn't imagine how this page was going to turn out, but just the way he visualized it, we went, well, that's just set the tone and the approach of the book. Like, it was really a case of melding this concept of gods among men, and how does the title relate to this true crime story, and it's visually manifested in such a sort of in this borderline supernatural, truth is stranger than fiction kind of way.
So is there, when you opened up the book the first time, you get your first copy from the printer, maybe even if you're looking at the proofs, and you saw that visual image, what did you guys feel?
It's like a cathartic feeling, because it's something that we've had this idea for so long and tried so many different ways of getting it across, that to finally see it fleshed out was pretty special.
I can imagine. That's got to be amazing.
I think it's like there was the emotional side that gets nourished, and then I would say the next level was when we started putting the book out there and going, all right, like, can this be a story that can sustain itself and start to grow? And I think that was another level of catharsis, to know that something that you've made is being well received out in the world.
We've always believed it was a great story, and I think you should, as the creator. Otherwise, like, why do it? But it was new to us to have people understand what we were trying to do, and the feedback that was coming back from the time we started the Kickstarter, and we did a couple of cons, and as people started to buy it and read it and give us their feedback, it was amazing for us to realize that, wow, somebody else sees what we're trying to say.
When you saw your ideas fleshed out on paper and you're starting to get these amazing feelings all together, did anything change for you story-wise? Did you say, you know what, this looks so cool, I have to work more into this end of it?
I don't think anything changed as a result of people's reactions so much as
emboldened us
to really buckle down and keep it as raw and sort of unfiltered, if you will, as it was. I think it was more in the development process that there were certain things that I guess you could call an accident, such as our page 22, which we can discuss a little bit about that, because I think
I'm not going to be the guy to spoil anything, so I'm letting you run with that one.
Well, what I'll say is page 22 was a bit of a left field idea. And it's funny, the story we were talking about this the other day, and that actually came about as a result of yes, thank you, Las Cruces. Great stories and well-written books.
Thank you.
Josh tells me, he said, like, story, it should always begin with a great story, because you can have, you know, art that's not quite there, but if your story ultimately isn't top, then yeah, it can't last. But no, page 22 was like a beautiful accident, and we ended up liking the tone that it concluded the book so much that we thought, yeah, this will be a recurring thing.
And it is something that definitely, as a reader, is like, okay, I need more. Where's this going? I need the next one. I need more. Las Cruces, I wanted to say, yeah, this is a perfect example of a great story and a well-written comic. And I encourage you to go ahead and look at one of those websites on the bottom of the screen, either for the physical or the digital, to explore this. Because again, this is the type of thing that I think needs to be in more hands.
Thank you. We're definitely working hard to try and gradually expand beyond. You know, Australia is, if you can, our accents are not quite Aussie, but you know, Australia is so sort of in this butt corner of the world that to try and expand from there, I tell you, it's a sort of challenge that not many other countries face. But you know, we've managed to get our first store in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and that for us was a real big sort of first step to branching out. And yeah, the goal, we have plans next year to try and get our book into North America. So we're really excited for that.
Good. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people in the community, or a couple of people, I should say, in the community who either have tight connections to stores or work at, or even, I don't know if they own, but work at stores on their own as well. So I think this is definitely, hopefully this definitely leads, you know, to getting your books over here. Because like I said, I honestly think this is something that should be read. And I think if it's in the right hands, will take off. But now you're talking a little bit about Australia. My wife actually has some family in Australia as well. So I kind of know it's hard because you're on an island, you know, one that you can't really inhabit all of.
Yeah, very big island.
Very.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, the struggle with this is, and this might just be the caffeine finally kicking in talking, so you excuse me, I'm avoiding referencing my favorite Simpsons episode where they're in Australia at every sentence. And it's tough. But what are some of the challenges that you've run into?
I don't know, but it's funny because when we just started talking about Australia, this isn't exactly comic pertaining, but it made me think of the drive that we had to do going up to a festival in Queensland, and that's all the way up north, and we're all the way down south. I guess you could call it an unconventional comic convention tabling opportunity, because Josh plays in a band called Anna, which we also made another comic for, and that's the first time I will say that we have driven a total of 60 hours
in 4 days.
In 4 days, there and back. For the festival, but also for me to be there at the merch booth tabling with comic books at a music festival. That to date has been one of the biggest challenges.
Well, that counts as a challenge.
Yeah, that creatively, now that I think about any of the challenges we faced in the development and anything,
just money, really.
Yeah, but that still pales in comparison to I think when you talk about how far will you go for your craft, and we can measure that in distance and time. And for reference, from Melbourne to Airlie Beach in Queensland, there and back, the driving distance is the same as going from Los Angeles to New York.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I don't know if people realize, tell me if I'm wrong, 'cause I'm just spouting off what I know from like Josh Gates and everything. You can't drive through the center of Australia. You need to go kind of around. Is that right?
You should go around.
They can sort of drive through the center. It's not advisable. That's what we did.
Oh,
It's not a good place.
it's
yeah.
It's not like driving on Route 80 here. You know, it's
You're talking off roads, sort of these what they call like the outback routes. And there is a difference between driving through the country where there's farms and there's some greenery and just plains, and the outback where you see red sand and all sorts of animals. And it really made us go, all right, this is the furthest we've gone physically for our craft.
That's further than most will go. I'll say that too, especially we're in this age of point and click. It's I feel like that's almost a movie at the very least in its own.
That's its own story.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube episode about that.
Get Seth Rogen in there, and I'm pretty sure you guys could sell that story.
I just do the laugh.
Was there what was the scariest point? Why don't we say this, or why don't we say the most worrisome point of that road trip?
Wow, there was so many.
We traveled in 2 cars, and the other car broke down twice. Once on a gravel road, basically consisting of dirt and sharp
Actually,
rocks.
it's the first time they broke down. We're in the middle of a heat wave where it was like 45 degrees Celsius.
I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's hot. It's
Me
real.
neither.
It's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the second time they broke down, they lost all 4 tires.
How did that
But
happen?
I think, well, if you take a sports sedan with low profile tires and take it into the Australian outback, it's not going to survive.
Yeah, it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah. And we had a big truck, so it was all right. But I think we also collectively crashed into about 4 kangaroos, and they're pretty big. It's like hitting deer.
And here we see pictures of kangaroos, or when you're younger, there's a kangaroo cartoon. I think we've all seen that video now. A kangaroo will mess you up.
They're big, full of muscle.
I used to think they were the most dangerous things to hit. Then I've seen something new on this trip. Australian wild boar.
I could imagine.
They're massive.
They're a terrifying. They're long. They're
like 450 kilos. Huge things. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Las Cruces did the math for us.
Oh,
113. Yeah, 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Yep, that's pretty hot.
Yeah.
It was, it's bad. It gets dry out there, and it's funny because we'll give a little teaser for the future of Gods Among Men, but there are scenes that take place on a rural highway going between 2 states. So the story does expand beyond the burger shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to think that drive was that was really it's a 8-hour drive from Melbourne to the next city. That's how far apart things are in Australia. And now in hindsight, I go, no, the outback is really that's the real trial and tribulation.
But yeah, Josh, you said it. I mean, I'd be afraid of just the wildlife, if anything else too. I used to watch it at work. We have to get talking about the comic, of course, but I'll say this too. I used to watch this show when I was younger called Monster Quest, which was in search of creatures. And some of them were good, then they got very boring. But one of the ones that I thought was more interesting, that is not a monster, but a creature thought to be extinct. Some people say that they see them around you now, the Tasmanian tigers.
Right.
And I know that there's some argument that no, they're just kind of all in the middle where nobody can go. But
I buy that.
Australia is just so big. It's so insanely big.
It's not just that it's big. It's big, and there's so much of it where there's nothing. Because I think one part, the trip that I found most scary part of the trip was we were driving through the night, and we were trying to find fuel for the cars.
Oh.
And we passed through about 3 towns, and they were all closed. I'm just hoping, I hope the next town has feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could, that's again, that's another movie or another story right there.
Yeah, I think that's our own separate idea.
It will come out later on. We did actually film a lot of footage along the way. We did put up a short little vlog on YouTube, but there'll be a longer one later on.
I'm definitely looking that up.
Yeah. We'll send you the link.
Yeah,
Definitely. So I know that you just said, hey, there's going to be a sequence somewhere further in the story where you're traveling between two states. Do you feel that this story, God Amongst Men, could is there anything that's uniquely Australian in it? Is it something that can apply anywhere?
I think it's yeah. I don't think it matters where the location is. It just happens that this story happens in Australia. That was my initial feeling, but the feedback we got from fans, we've had people from America and Europe and Asia read it, and that doesn't matter so much. I think it's more special for Australian fans, especially people from Melbourne, because they can recognize locations. But that's not really important to the story.
I think that was one of always my pet peeves when we first started sort of surfacing, I guess, in the Australian comic scene, was that I did find there were a lot of comics that relied very heavily on the Australian culture. And as a result, I found it very alienating because we were previously from Singapore and then we moved to Australia. And I felt the best stories had universal concepts that weren't tied to a particular, like it's not a case of, oh, you have to be born here, you have to live here to get it. I think people who do get an extra kick out of it, like a bonus Easter egg sort of kick, but your themes should be universal. They should transcend age and gender and nationality. I think that's something that we felt this story, the core struggle, struggling to make ends meet, trying to support your family, and also the protagonist, his drive. Everybody aspires to do more and go beyond.
Yeah, and I mean that's very curious. It's very smart what you just said too. So even though, like, I do like it when a story maybe has an element that's uniquely about a place or about a time. However, it's got to make that connection of, hey, this is what's great about this place, but this is what connects us all together. This is what's relatable to everything. I don't know if you guys read Rare Flavors this past year. That's a perfect example of that.
Haven't read it, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It was something that I think I saw in Bueller. To be honest with you, I think that's how I was introduced to me, and I was all right. Let me give it a shot. And again, it's not a superhero tale. It's definitely a little supernatural. I guess that might be a loose kind of connection, but yeah, you've got these whole road trip elements and whatnot in it as well. That I know nothing about Indian mythology, but the way that they tied it in, I knew enough to get me through the story and to really connect with the characters.
I haven't. I don't actually read a lot of comics. I haven't had much time in the last year to do reading. I'm still actually halfway through a book, one of America's most notorious and misunderstood books, I think.
Okay, is it Turok?
No, it's called Uncle Tom's Cabin.
No, I'm not familiar. It's a comic or it's a book?
It's a book, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Book. Yeah, it's an old one.
I think I heard of it. I to be honest with you, I struggled to sit down and read a book. Since having kids, I start to read and just, all right, chapter 1.
Yeah.
I think that's where I provide more of that comic side element, because I've got the worst attention span. So I've had people try and recommend me books and I just couldn't keep to it. But I think that helps me sort of apply my reader's glasses, if you will. And, if I read the book that we're writing and I start to go, all right, I'm dozing off, then that's not a good sign as well. I think you should be able to step back as a creator and try and read it as a consumer. And yeah, that's something that I felt like
It's so true. Yeah.
I think it's been beneficial. Yeah.
Even I could tell you when I draw, if I'm working on a big piece, I'll draw something and then I'll be in. Look, by the time the kids go to bed and everything, I'm 10 o'clock at night finally sitting down and like, all right, let me do this. And it's very easy to go until 2 and 3 and be like, this looks fantastic. I have to be up for work tomorrow. And then it's not great. That's why I say to people, look, stop, go to bed, go do something else, and come back to it and look at it with fresh eyes from a different perspective. And that's a lot of the same thought there.
Mm-hmm.
What is something that before you started this whole journey of creating a comic and getting a good story down and everything that you wish you knew? What is something you wish you knew then that you know now?
You got one?
Not really. I think as you can tell from the road trip that we just recently did, we see something we want and then we just go and do it, and then we figure it out along the way. And even with the road trip, as we were doing it, everybody agreed, if we knew this was what it was, we wouldn't have done it. But that's how we are with everything. We kind of jump first and then figure it out while we're in the air.
I think with comic books, especially, like, because we had this, there was so much development. The script that we wrote for the pilot, for the concept film, we were so sort of locked into what that would be required of us logistically, that when it came to the comic book, there was just a lot of relief, I guess, getting to work with our artists, our colorists, and we went, oh, this is our team. This is the whole, there's no department heads, so I think we came into the comic creating process really grateful.
And that's good too, that you never know, hey, this is a big hit, or the right executive or something picks it up and like in a year or two comes in and say, hey, look, we want to make this into a TV series. What do you think? We'll do the heavy lifting. You've got everything else written out here.
Yeah.
Be a nice full circle moment. But but it's nice because too, even though you say that road trip, if everybody knew, nobody would have done it. Now you might get a good story out of it.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to just repeat myself. If you have not already, and you should, I've put links to their website here at the bottom. One to get a digital copy of God Among Men, and another to get a digital copy. Again, whether you're reading this physically or digitally, it's something I highly recommend that you do. And I'm quite honest about these things. I don't get paid or anything to do this. I'm not going to ask you guys to send me anything afterwards, but I'm just telling you this because this is a good comic by, look, two guys who are very motivated by the story that they're telling. I think the best creators that I've spoken to, indie creators, are the ones who are self-motivated and are hustling and, do what it takes to get your story told. And I commend you guys on that.
Thank you. I think one thing we found was how much, I understand, like, there are people who read comics digitally, but we got to see how important, how big a role physical still played in the comic book world. And I thought it was a great opportunity because it's the first time we'll get to show this, but this was a real big landmark moment for us, where this guy we knew from another state in Australia, he actually is a CGC authorized dealer, and he sent our book in, and we got this in the mail.
Wow.
Which this was a real massive moment for us, because it kind of felt like we're definitely on the right path, having only released the book this year, and now I get to hold a slab of it in my hand, which is it was a real sort of surreal moment, because like it's like the first step, going to the next level. So that was really that was really nice.
That's a nice moment. It's like, somebody opens up, I'm in Jersey, so it's a pizza shop or a deli, and they get that first dollar that they make and put it up on the wall here, that type of thing. But no, that's a cool moment. I like that. Okay, now I don't have a whole lot of people joining us live today, but if anybody here has any questions, of course, jump right in. You know how it is. I'm trying to think what else I can ask you about here too. Are you for plotting out like the next couple issues and whatnot? And maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse. When can we expect the story to continue?
Well, the next thing we're doing, and everyone asked us when Gods Among Men came out, when's issue 2 coming? And our response was probably very unorthodox because we said, what's coming next is issue 1 for our second title, Anna.
Mm.
So what Aaron's holding here, this is what we call issue 0. And it's only, I think it's a 6-page preview.
It's an ash can.
Right. And we used it as merchandise at gigs. And the sale of this, it's gone into a second printing. And we used whatever we sold from that to fund the first issue. So that's going to be released in January.
So for some context for any who doesn't know, so Anna is a band that Josh is the guitarist of. He had pink hair at the time. This was our other venture alongside Gods Among Men, where this came up at a time where we were, writing and sort of producing Gods Among Men, and we need merchandise for the band. So we thought, why not create a comic book since we already were? And it's been a really beneficial thing in enabling us to get comic books into the hands of people who were there for music, people who weren't typically comic book fans. And, I think that's, look, we're very unconventional, sort of all the different things that we do. So this was just another unconventional approach to add to the mix. And I think it's worked out really beneficially to be able to sort of, have comic people interested and then also branch out, into other industries.
And are you getting a big crossover audience that way?
I would say so. One thing I noticed,
We sold probably just as many Annas as Gods Among Men, or more.
about the same.
About the same.
They're about on par.
But the majority of them have been from concerts and all that, so it's a different audience. Yeah.
So when you finally do continue with the story, are you anticipating on having the same crew or the same people work on it with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Good.
it's so important. I've seen projects fall apart because the creative team fell apart, and the key, it starts as well with from us as the writers to Ben Sullivan, who's the penciler and inker. It was so crucial that, as you can see in the first issue, there's such specific locations, specific moments, sensations that Ben had to really, I guess, get put in the passenger seat of how the story plays out, because I guess there's certain events, you have to really play it out for him.
Oh yeah, if you read, trying to think, what's the name of the book? Hold on, it's on the shelf somewhere. Understanding Comics. Yeah, one of the major things that they put in there, and I was about to compliment you on this too, if you reminded me, thank you, is, especially for an indie book, Ben has a very good sense of sequential art. You watch a movie, for somebody to get up, walk across the street and open the door, that takes a second to do. In a comic, you have to make those decisions, because if you want to show, hey, he's getting up, he's walking, you've wasted 8 panels in just something mundane like that. And I feel like many times that's where indie books kind of lose me a little bit, is where it's like, okay, maybe this wasn't the best sequence to show. But here, Ben's got an excellent grip of that. I mean, that prawn burger scene is, just indicative of that. Because something like that is very easy to mess up, and he didn't mess it up. So that's a very good thing.
That's something we're really proud of our team as well. Like the fact that, Ben and Wilson go as the colorists, and we have these scenes that would be that could be mishandled very easily to become sort of draw and drab. But they did a fantastic job at basically sort of giving this like gravitas to, you know, a couple of guys, you know, scribbling notes in the back of a shop kind of thing. And I think, yeah, that's so important how you handle, in a way, action scenes are easier because there's a lot of stuff going on, but having to handle a scene where there's effectively nothing, essentially nothing going on, that's the true test.
Yeah, you've got to make it interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. One thing I'm going to say too that just kind of occurred to me. You guys are involved in music. You have, I can draw by this, an interest in filmmaking, and now you're in comics as well. So you have three creative industries, if you will, that you know are very kind of difficult to kind of break through. But I feel like at any given time, each of those, especially music, of course, had the opportunity to really, you know, punk rock your way into it. I would say that indie films, maybe like right before COVID, you had that opportunity. I think a little bit so now too. Comics have kind of come back and forth like that. Music, I from what I understand, which isn't much, it's probably the more difficult of the three, but that kind of hustle mentality, you know, where do you find yourself like being involved in these three things, just saying, hey, I could apply this, what I know from here to here, that type of thing?
I think they all move in conjunction with each other, and I think it helps that we're probably, you know, slightly obsessed with what we're doing. So
I was going to say creatively focused, but there you go.
Yeah,
like a.
I'll be honest, it's an obsession, maybe even borderline addiction.
Yeah, like an Adderall focus kind of.
Yeah, our entire day, there's not a single, you know, part of the day where we're not talking about one of these things or doing something with regards to it. Like, you know, now we're talking to you at 4 a.m, and in a few hours we go to do rehearsals because we're beginning a tour of Europe in January.
Oh wow!
And yeah, so like along the way, we're also talking about Anna's issue 1. It's done now. We're just in the final stages of getting it ready to go off the printers, and after that, when we get back, we'll begin work on the second issue of Gods Among Men. So our plan is to jump between the two titles. Each one gets one issue at a time.
Will Anna be also available through the same links we have at the bottom when it's ready?
So
Yes, they will be.
They will be, and we also plan to launch a Kickstarter for Anna in, I say, Feb next year.
So yeah,
obsessed can be a good thing when people see the end result.
Yeah,
but, you know, it's such a turmoil. Like when I talk with Josh, he and I work really interestingly. Where I'm a planner, so I really like to try and map things out. And Josh will be like, we're not there yet. I'll figure it out when we get there. And then my brain goes crazy because I'm like, what do you mean we'll figure it out when we get there? But we do always figure it out when we get there. So I've learned to kind of develop this faith.
But you know what? Whatever. Hey, look, whatever the secret sauce is between your two styles, it's working. That's the proof is in the pudding there, as they say. So let me see. I don't have I don't have any questions actually coming in from the audience. A lot of people are going to see this on the replay. I do see Las Cruces is with us still here too. But I want to say, guys, you're doing a great job. In case nobody's told you. And I'm here. I'm like, all right, now I have to go get Anna, and then I have to, you know, hopefully I'll be able to read that quickly. But I'll definitely hear for the next issue.
Yeah, amazing.
Anna's gonna surprise you because it's completely a different direction. It is more familiar, I guess, to comic readers because it's more of that superhero thing. But again, it's a very different take on a genre. For me, because I'm not really a comic fan, I'm familiar with comics in the same way like most of the mainstream's familiar with them in the TV series and the movies. And I'm not really a fan of what's being put out. So I thought Anna was my chance. Like, this is how I would do it, how I would tell the story if I was to get involved in that. And I think it's another very different take.
Now, let me ask, having now gone through the process
Mhm.
of creating at this point multiple comics, has that changed your perspective, I guess you could say, of I don't want to say the industry, but just basically like you're saying, in general, you're not a fan of comics, but has that changed? Do you have a different appreciation for it, having gone through the process?
There's some that I have liked. I don't like the mainstream stuff.
Marvel, DC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel I've been more of a bigger fan of some of the manga stuff in terms because for me it's always is the storytelling first. I don't personally feel Marvel, for example, has a very good grip on things like power scaling. Continuity doesn't even really matter because you can kill someone and he comes back, and I feel
Start a new reboot.
yeah, things like that.
They get
It,
better.
it cheapens the impact of someone's death.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, every now and then I think you get one of those solid seminal stories.
Yep.
But yeah, it's I'll be honest with you, having read comics since I'm 14 years old, on and off, it's hit and miss when you look back.
Yeah.
I think I'm a big fan of creators, who know how their story ends. And, I think I personally believe that's why, series like The Boys and The Walking Dead had a better chance of getting adapted, not just because of the creative team, but because it was something contained. Whereas, look, I've been I've been on shows before where I talked about my love of Spawn. Like, I'm a big fan of the early period of Spawn. I thought it had a really great sort of tone, and it was kind of changing the game. I'm a little bit look, commercially I get it, why Spawn is spinning off into multiple different simultaneously running arcs. But creatively I feel like I would personally like it to have that end that it deserves.
Yeah.
But I know Todd wants to make it like Spider-Man, and it's just, obviously there's me as the reader and then me trying to see it from the business perspective. And I get that.
Yeah, I mean, the way I've been telling people in the past couple of years, just from my perspective as a reader, some of these titles have been going on since before we were born. And you have to allow yourself to say, Spider-Man, I like Spider-Man, but maybe this is where I get off. This is my stop. And then look, those stories are always there to come back to if you really want to check it out. And look, sometimes we're lucky and we get a run that, regardless if the character's going on, it has a definitive beginning, middle, and end, and it tells a great story. I mean, I could tell you, DC, it's a few years old at this point, but that Tom King Miracle, Mr. Miracle series, that's one I always go back to. I've actually lent that out to friends who we all became fathers around the same time, and I'm like, this is, if anything, a very good father and son story. You should take a look at this, or son kind of dealing with the crap you deal with when you get older, realizing that your parents weren't all knowing, basically.
I think and I was just gonna say how my favorite period was actually when, for the most part, when they let series kind of exist in their own world. Like, it was implicit that they were connected, but
Yeah.
I understand it's fun when they do crossovers, and by the time you get to like the modern age with Justice League and Avengers, and everybody's just kind of mixing into each other's pools. But some of my favorite DC was actually I think it was like the late 90s, like Swamp Thing and Hellblazer and even Spectre, where they were kind of allowed to exist in their own world. And I get that, there'll be the commercial appeal of blending. But I think that's just what I like, more contained stuff.
Yeah, and I agree with you too. I think there, really. But I'll give you an example. If you have the the time, probably digitally is the best. If when you guys aren't making music or writing or doing a million other things, check out that last volume of Wolverine, the Stephen Percy stuff. I mean, look, there's no character, I think, in Marvel that has been crossed over more than Wolverine, but they managed to kind of keep the story at least mostly self-contained, or at least like, hey, he's not with everybody else. This is why. And it is a good arc that has, who Wolverine is. This is the beginning of this story. Here's the middle, and ending that, to be honest with you, somebody who's read Wolverine for a really long time, I think was the best run since Larry Hama, maybe even outgoing Hama every now and then, but that's a whole nother topic here. Well, again, if you guys we're about to wrap things up, but I encourage you guys to go ahead and go ahead and just go to both links. Get one print, get one digitally, so you can collect one and read one wherever you want to go. Because really, Gods Amongst Men, a different story, an authentic story, and I think one that will definitely resonate with anybody who picks it up. Guys, is there any kind of parting shots or anything that you want to say to anybody else who may be watching this? No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah.
I'll probably just echo what you said. Check it out and make up your own mind about it. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to say this too. I didn't say this earlier. One of the places I do broadcast to is my LinkedIn profile. If you're somebody who's looking at this and is like, I'm not interested in comics, I don't want to read a superhero story. Perfect. This isn't a superhero story. This is a true crime story. So it's definitely a different flavor. You're not going to get anybody in tights. At least that wasn't a spoiler, but there you go.
But if you are interested in superhero stories, I think that being able to do two titles that are very different. Thank you, Las Cruces. Thank you for dropping in. Yeah, like I think we enjoy doing both, and we do them both very genuinely. So in a sense, we've got a flavor for everyone.
Definitely. Well, guys, thanks again for coming on, and thank you for your infinite patience while we put all this together.
No problem.
Again,
It's our pleasure.
Everybody, check their work out. You're not going to be disappointed. As far as I go, you're going to see I've got some recorded content I'm hoping to put out later this week. And then the live stuff, around the holidays kind of gets a little iffy. If I have another guest or some great ideas, I'll do another Less Week Today live. If not, we'll just do a drawing show or two. But guys, again, thanks for joining me. I appreciate that. And to you guys and everybody at home, peace, love, and comics. Take care.
See ya.
Thank you.